And depending where you are, it's morning, afternoon, or evening. Right here, it's 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time on January the 11th, 2020. I'm Emily Windsor-Craig, and this is History Reset, brought to you each Saturday by People's Internet Radio in Ireland and Radio Act TV in Jerusalem, Israel, to bring valuable information to the public that corporate media fail to divulge. This program is a public service. There's no charge, but you are welcome to please donate to People's Internet Radio and Radio Act TV to keep the people's truth coming at you without commercial adverts. Tonight's History Reset show is about why don't we share common knowledge anymore today. You know, everybody is on our own personal page. You have a personal page at Facebook, you put articles up there, and everybody puts their own precious stuff up there. I have about 14 pages at Facebook, and I tend to sift and sort articles into the page for which they are on topic, because I find that's a way of keeping from getting kicked out, to be quite frank. And so, because there used to be a common culture in the English-speaking world, something has changed, and essential knowledge is withheld and is being substituted by fantasy and bread and circuses. This is happening before our faces, but the cause is behind our backs. All right, we're having to deal with an ET doctrine. It's ET doctrines. ET non-disclosure drives all of this. And the reason is because the Masonic orders and the Illuminati and the Vatican are hooked in to ET doctrines, ancient knowledge, they call it, okay? They call it ancient knowledge. And the method of problem solving, I don't know if you've ever been to a Masonic order. I was a rainbow girl as a young girl. And what I noticed about it was that they went through a great deal of ritualistic recitations of arcane beliefs, and then they classified each individual in a role and gave them the exact directions what they had to do. And everybody had to believe the same thing. And that's how the ETs operate, who have surpassed and overcome the fourth dimension, which is aging. You know, it's a point, a line, a location, and time. Time is the fourth dimension. And when a race overcomes time, they overcome aging, their perspective changes. They're no longer thinking in immediate terms like we do, who are aging rather quickly. Okay. They take on a perspective that's much longer, and they talk about getting things done, not in terms of building, but in terms of manifesting. Not in terms of solving a problem, but in terms of coming to a consensus, okay? They have a different method. And so the first thing I've provided for you in today's very voluminous notes is the link on Holy Conservancy that discusses the differences between how we solve problems here on the ground, with our feet on the ground, and how these arcane societies affect our ability to solve our problems. But you see, the arcane societies don't allow whistleblowing. They don't allow truth-telling. They don't allow objecting or protesting because they're operating over a long consensus from their perspective. And their perspective, their doctrine, their dogma is everything. It's everything. All right. Now for us whose feet are on the ground, we have to balance the checkbook, and we have to do the laundry and clean the dishes out of the sink. The long perspective doesn't have immediacy for us. Okay. And as a result of that, the black hats, the people in power, the 1%, the rich, the hoarders, okay, those corporate moguls who have contrived ways to hoard huge quantities of monies and equities and so on. They want to solve human problems long-term, the Anunnaki, the ET way, and they're not paying much attention to what's going on the ground. You can say they're head tripping, okay? Their heads are in the clouds. This makes literal problem solving at the social level very difficult. Now that authority has been removed from the local level and sent to Washington, D.C., or sent to the EU, or sent somewhere else, the bureaucrats and the lobbyists who pay the bureaucrats and the corporations who pay the lobbyists have less interest in the problems on the ground than they do in perpetuating their status in their level of some bureaucracy. And so problems aren't even being discussed. And so today, I'm going to point out to all of us some of the issues that aren't being handled. They're not being taken care of because we're so busy with the mainstream media and the House of Representatives doing everything they can to exhaust, denigrate, humiliate, and get rid of our duly elected president, okay? They will do anything, and they are doing anything. And one of the things they're doing is not doing anything. They're not doing anything. The first issue I want to bring up, and all you have to do is Google or go to YouTube and search on medical errors, number 3 in deaths, okay? And what I have a little a graphic that I've been putting up on articles that show that medical malfeasance and medical malpractice is costing in the United States alone 250,000 people per year. That's infants to old age. Just medical errors is killing 250,000 people a year. Do you see the magnitude of that? Now, 44,000 people a year are committing suicide. 41,000 people a year are disappearing without a trace, okay? But 250,000 are dying just from medical errors, and those aren't counting the cancer patients. And you know, cancer is an industry, it's not just a disease. All right, so I want, there's a link here at YouTube for a presentation about the medical errors, the medical error industry in the United States, and how we can adapt to the fact that bureaucracy in medical care has removed the personal and individual attention from the patient. The patient is now seen merely as a step in a progression of disease diagnoses and symptomologies, okay? It is unlikely that any doctor will have an intrinsic interest in whatever it is your medical condition is, because the doctor is completely distracted by the process and the computer input and the computer output and the test scores and the requirements and the procedure and the visits. You know, see what I'm saying? That medical care in the United States has been reduced to a gaming system where the human being isn't really even confronted. All right, that's the first one I wanted to bring up, because that's the one that has affected so many members of my family, that we can no longer trust the vaccines. We can no longer trust the prescriptions. We can no longer trust the procedures. And that's a tough spot to be in. I don't know if other countries, particularly in Scandinavia or Japan or other high-tech countries, have a better rate of keeping the people healthy than here. Okay, the second thing that's happening, and we hear about bits and pieces all the time, but the overall view. I just put up a note yesterday about how the laws in the United States with respect to a person's status as a citizen have been altered and changed since 1871 and then again in 1933, so that now, speaking in terms of Maritime Admiralty Law, UCC codes, administrative codes, an American citizen today has about the same status as a consumable product in terms of legal standing. This is discussed a great deal in the alternative press. There are whole groups that are lobbying to have it changed. But what's keeping it in place so that nothing can change is the Bar Association. The American Bar Association is owned outright at the City of London, Inns of Court, by the Bar Association in London. And so the American Bar cannot restore or repair its ethos until and unless the British counterpart restores or repairs its ethos. And as you can see, the Bar Association makes its money on the conflicts and disputes that it processes. Okay, it processes them. You know, there are filings and there are filing fees and there's evidence and there's testimony and there's cross-examination and there's this process that the Bar Association stands with that doesn't produce justice, it produces money. That's the value of the Bar Association, that all of the attorneys will be paid for their authorship of filings, and the paralegals are paid who typed out the transcriptions, and the copy machines get paid, and the witnesses everybody gets paid. And so when the outcome of a human conflict or dispute has something to do with human relationships, the remedy of the Bar Association is to shove money in the face of the victim as if money was going to create justice in that particular case. We see this last week. A young high school kid who was humiliated by the mainstream media sued them for $345 million, and he got an undisclosed settlement, no millions of dollars. And tell me something, is that going to fix that kid's problem? Of course not. Of course not. The money isn't how you solve human relationship problems. Problem solving is how you solve. And the adversarial process set up by the Bar Association is the absolute obstacle to justice for any of us in this society. And the Islamists, the people who practice Sharia law, are giggling and sneering under their breath because they know how broken the Bar Association has. They know the game, okay, and it's just a game. So that's the second thing that is not being dealt with, that we have to be smart enough to outwit. That's the whole remedy for any of these problems, is we have to be smart enough to outwit these people. The next one is our education system teaches a lot of fables. He does this every week. Our education system teaches a lot of fables and myths about some of the most basic elements of science. They teach effects without causes. They teach measurements that apparently aren't accurate. They teach us that the moon is 226,000 miles away and that it's 2,100 miles in diameter, and they teach the sun is 93 million miles away. Okay, they have the relativity theories coming out the wazoo. Now, what I've done in response to that, what I've done personally, and today in the notes, there is a link for a PDF copy, a free one, of my Moonbook 3, all right, Moonbook 3 PDF. So just download the Moonbook and read and look at the pictures in the Moonbook. There's 150 pages of pictures in the Moonbook. And see for yourself and compare for yourself the official appearance of what's on the moon versus what can be gleaned from it with some help and skill in digital imaging processing. And the point of showing what's actually on the moon, it's just the little tip of the iceberg, because the images from NASA missions, the Magellan mission, the Cassini mission, the Clementine mission, those images were all specifically structured so that they didn't show what was in the black light spectrum or the infrared spectrum. They didn't show everything that was on the page. They didn't show everything on the picture. And so you can kind of guess from looking at what you can really see on the moon, what we could probably see on Mars, Jupiter, Uranus, Mercury, the other planets, even Pluto. I have a good picture of Pluto. And so what we get from this, we're being fed a lot of information that is very partial. There's a whole backstory that isn't being told. And the people who work at NASA, and there are what, tens of thousands of people work at NASA. And you have to wonder what they believe based on the fact that backyard videographers now with home equipment can aim at the moon and zoom up to the moon's surface and take pictures of what's on the moon's surface. Yes, because the backyard equipment is kind of primitive. I'm going to have to go in there and bring up the color and bring up the contrast and stuff. But the fact is that NASA's fairy stories don't wash anymore. And everybody, well, I think we all need to know that it's the black hats, the non-disclosure freaks, the control freaks who don't want us to know. that we have company, that we live in a universe that's occupied top down and bottom up, that the universe, even the pictures of the universe, I have just found my third rendering off the internet from another source of what the universe itself looks like. And it was so exciting to me because the words, the text in some of the books that I've been reading make sense looking at the pictures. Isn't this cool? It's really cool, all right? Because you know about the precession of the equinoxes, and there are the 12 houses of the zodiac, okay? And each one, each constellation has its own little sphere inside the torus of the whole universe. It's marvelous. It can be visualized very simply with these pictures that have come up on the internet, free, by people who just found them and said, gee, have you seen this? You know? But if you were to go to your child's school and ask the science teacher what the universe looks like, the science teacher wouldn't be able to tell you because the science teachers aren't given the backstory of NASA work that never gets developed. This is a tragedy. It's sad. Why can't we know that we live in a peopled universe? That's crazy. The Urantia book has been out since, I believe, the 1930s or the 1950s, and it describes the entire hierarchy of the orders, the central universe and the outer universes and all the statuses and positions. Why can't our culture know about this? Now, the profane history that I found that is just dynamite is Voyagers 2 by Ashiana Dean. And it is hard going, I'll tell you that, okay. But it essentially backs up what the Urantia book says and what the OSPI says, all right? So we have more than just one holy book. We have a plethora of holy books to learn from, the way you would learn from a series of books on astronomy or diet or gardening. Why are we the people kept to such a pitiful curriculum of half-based non-facts? Okay? All right. I hope you enjoy your copy of the Moon book. It's a PDF file. You'll have to bring it up as a PDF file and go down page by page. And the text is in 14 points, so it's easy to read. I didn't do a little tiny text, so that people can know that we have the right to know. We have the right to know what's going on in our world. And the education system, the Common Core curriculum, as far as I've been able to determine, and dealing with the children in the neighborhood, they have a poor vocabulary. They can't make change. They don't look you in the eye when you say good morning to them. And they're very suspicious. The Common Core curriculum has been overruled and replaced in the state of Florida with marvelous results. I'm wondering when more parents are going to start paying attention to the fact that their children are being brought up by the school to be brats, ignorant brats, all right? This is not good. And we have to overrule and overcome the obsessively obsequious, submissive, docile, passive, lazy teachings of Common Core. And we have to restore arithmetic that makes immediate sense, okay? Never mind whole constructions to add or subtract two whole numbers. That's crazy, all right? So what is in front of our face is a lot of junk food for the mind. That's the honest way of characterizing it. And what is also in front of our face is a directive and a direction to keep us busy. They want us busy. They want us busy with sports, busy with going back and forth, transportation, go, 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 go. They want parents busy trying to make a living so the kids are either home alone or with sitters, so that the family is torn apart and fragmented. Fragmenting families was a major, major positive outcome of the Rockefeller Institute, as discussed. What was that man's name? He died around 2008. Aaron, yeah.
Aaron, so.
Aaron, what was his?
Bruce.
Yeah.
Russo. Aaron Russo.
Yes, Aaron Russo. Okay, and I have copies of his film on brighteon.com, where I keep I have an archive of 600 videos there of historical videos that I keep for people who want to know the real story. Okay, Aaron Russo, yes, died of cancer, and he spoke at length about the desire of the Rockefellers to bring in feminism, separate the family, separate the children from the parents, put the children in a school with propaganda, and keep the parents separated at different jobs, so that there's a maximum of fragmentation in the community. And that's exactly what the leftist orientation of Marxism also intends to occur. Now, Marxism has several schools. The Frankfurt School belongs in academia, okay? And Saul Alinsky wrote his Rules for Radicals as a member of academia. But there have also been a couple of attempts in government bureaucracies, the Cloward-Piven plan and the Kalergi plan, to do the same thing, and that's basically to disseminate and fragment families and neighborhoods so that there's no cohesive culture anywhere, and have all the people who are educated to make sure they only have small families, and allow the people who are uneducated to have large families, so that the large families can come in and take over where the small families can no longer abide. This was all deliberate. This was all deliberate by the same Illuminati, Masonic, Vatican, top-down, black hats who are assembling a world to suit their ideology, as if human beings exist for the purpose of satisfying an ideology of impersonal others. I don't think that that's what I exist for. That's not what I'm doing here. To exist to suck up to hoarders and people who believe that they're supreme, who want to simply deny whatever opportunities I might be able to qualify for on the basis of the simple fact that I belong in the wrong social class, the wrong race, the wrong faction, okay, wrong faction, right? I don't go into the gender studies very much because I'm personally androgynous. And so my take is that I favor biology over psychological preferences. And that's just how I live my life. So the next thing we have to kind of determine here is, okay, if the black hats are the non-disclosure people, the MJ12 people, is Q a black hat or is he a white hat? I can't tell. I can't tell if he's a black hat or a white hat. What I can tell from the video that I gave you the link to about the deep underground military bases being somehow cleaned up by white hats, what is striking about that report, and it's just from January 1st of this year, it's just, you know, like 11 days old, so it's not an old report. There's nobody taking credit for demilitarizing or neutralizing the underground bases. So we can't know who the white hats are. But the white hats are undoing the entire plan of the non-disclosure NEOCONS and deep state. They have planned to set up a World War III since 1871, when Albert Pike made the directive about 3 world wars. They've been following that directive ever since, and they've been trying to stage World War III since 2000. That's, you know, like 2 decades ago. They're still trying to stage World War III. And the white hats and President Trump so far have frustrated them in that regard. But some things are happening that take away my easy optimism. One, the media is so vicious in its nonstop attacks. And, you know, President Trump is 73. I don't know what human being needs to stand and, or will stand, or can stand under such a barrage of non-human vitriol and accusation. I mean, he can, yeah?
Lori tried to look for your moon book on PDF.
Yeah.
Do you have a link somewhere?
Oh, yeah. It's, oh, okay. All right. All right. It's on the Facebook page, and I will give it to you right now. Oh, yes, you've got to have that. You've got to have that. Come on. Where's my, oh, there's my little note. I've got to give it to, oops, I can't do it there. Oh, I cannot walk down the street and chew gum, okay? It's too complicated for me. How do I get there from here? I've got too many screens up. Try this one. Oh, there we go. Okay, there's the link. There's the link to the book. And here's the link to the article about the differences between problem solving in the third dimension where we live and of the ETs who don't believe in problem solving. In fact, I've had New Age people say to me, the more you think about a problem, the more it grows.
Family?
Yeah.
That last link you just sent me, it says the site can't be reached. Some sort of error or something.
Well, that's interesting. I know there was an agent trying to get in touch with me so that he could hack. This site can't be reached. All right, so they're hacking me. That's Let's try it this way. Wow, they've hacked me. All right. Well, it's up. It's not up. Neither of those is reachable. Oh wow.
Oh, the first one's okay. I got the PDF.
You got the PDF,
Uh-huh.
but you can't get the regular text.
That says just 45 pages.
That's correct. That's just, it's only 40. Because of the resolution problem, the internet resolution is 72 pixels per square inch. And that just doesn't work for photography. In photography, you've got to have 300 pixels per square inch. So in order for you to be able to see what's in the picture, I've had to take big pictures and make a little so you can they focus better. So there's generally 4 to 6 pictures on each page. Yeah, I'm getting the Moon Book also. How can we be getting the Moon Book and not getting the text file? That doesn't make any sense. There it is. I got it. I just got it. I just got it. All right. So it's available sometimes and not other times. Okay. There. All right. So we've handled those two things. The lack of problem-solving process isn't just in the New Age paradigm of non-problem solving because you intend to manifest a common visualization of a faction or group. That's one way. But apparently, the method that was devised in the Constitution for preventing corruption didn't work either. And the method devised for, well, I really am lost here. Oh, there we go. The method devised by the Bar Association for adjudicating human conflicts and disputes doesn't work either. And the method devised for curing illness, disease, and contagion in the contemporary model isn't working either. We have a crisis of methods. The methods of Marxists to destroy all civil reference in order to improve services. Oh my God. You see how we're having a crisis of methods there, Steve?
Yes.
Okay, and the problem is the methods are coming down to us from ETs who have never been down here and don't know how to do anything down here anyway. So who are these ETs? Who are these ETs? Well, I've been spending some time with atheists over at LinkedIn, and I actually do okay with the atheists because I start with the proposition that if God isn't an ET, what else could he be? Duh. Okay, starting with the proposition that God has to be an ET in that huge hierarchy that the Urantia book talks about and the Voyagers 2 talks about. And that he's a biologist and a scientist and an ecologist, and he came during the last constellation year, which was 25,772 years, and his administration ended on 12/21/2012, but he's still here because his successor fled in terror. But that's another story. All right, so if God is an ET, and if the Anunnaki culture, which is an ET culture, is what has saturated human life with their belief that problem solving is a group manifestation project rather than a stones and bricks and mortar project, one can see why things are the way they are. Okay, because the methods that the Anunnaki taught us are not in harmony with the biology that we live in. Okay, the methods of solving problems by the non-disclosure black hat elites don't work here. The Bar Association has done a terrible job of creating just us, JUSTUS, instead of justice. The medical profession is doing a terrible job of making us healthy. The government is on the verge of not just collapse, but being taken down by the partisans whose method is to take everything down so you can replace it with nothing. That's what Marx said. You got to throw out the government and then you let the kids run it, right? You let the young people are supposed to know. And what do our young people know today? I don't want to go there. All right, so we're in a crisis of methodology, and our president needs all the support he can to hold to the precepts that he has. But if we're to fix this mess, we need a renaissance in law to make the Bar Association accountable for the costs of their process and for the outcomes of their process. Likewise, medicine has to be accountable for costs and outcomes. And there is how big our problem is. Now, we are a matter of generation. We are a society of generations. Since the 1880s, each generation has been kept separated by age in school. All right. So that's why we have the boomer generation, which is ahead of me. I'm before the boomer generation. And then after the boomer generation, there was the 50s, and then there's just the 60s. But each decade has its label as to a perspective, as to a way of seeing the world. And those generations are the labels by which sociologists and writers and psychologists label our behavior. It has become very fragmented. And so I'm one of those people who wants to say, well, why don't we just do what used to work? I don't know, is that an unreasonable idea? Let's just do what works. And what works is when you do something good you should get a good outcome. And when you destroy something or harm somebody, you should be disrupted from doing that and pay for the healing or the reparation of the person you harmed and put back on the track to doing good or expelled. These are the simple laws of common law of cause and effect that actually do work. Now, there are a couple of areas where I see some optimism. Jordan Peterson, who's a counsel, I don't know if he's a psychiatrist. He is a highly practiced practitioner, but he has delved so deeply into the emotional experiences of the human organism that he has made every form of human choice voluntary. There is no relational outcome anymore that we can say, oh, but she's helpless. She can't help herself. No, not anymore. Whatever we do to other people comes back to us in the form and format that we sent it out. And Jordan Peterson has pretty well proven that and shown that. And so he has become a light to the people who are not finding much comfort in the doctrines and the dogmas and the rituals and the liturgy and the prayer book in the church. Okay, the church has become a matter of rote learning and routine that leaves most of us out anymore. And that's why a lot of parishioners are voting with their feet. There are some denominations that continue to persist and grow, and they are the ones that demand accountability for behavior and that suppress argumentation over doctrine and beliefs, because the doctrine and beliefs aren't that important. What's important is the behavior. Love your brother. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Let your yes mean yes and your no mean no, and so on and so forth. It's behavior that's important, not how many angels fit on the head of the pin, or is what is the exact nature of the Trinity. Okay? And so churches are reorganizing around behavior. The Orthodox Church has done that openly. And the Catholic Church is doing that in part of its factions and not doing it in another part of its factions. And I'm very familiar with very chaste and decent and devotional factions in the Catholic Church. Whereas I have a lot to say about what the Vatican is promoting as a matter of doctrine and dogma from the ET dimension and the Anunnaki and the Babylonian traditions. I find many Catholics to be very observant, well-behaved, decent people, reverent people. And so I've learned over the years, you just can't get personal about this stuff. You can't tell somebody else what to think or believe. You know, we all have to confront reality and choose and decide what we're going to act on. And so personal choice, I believe now, is the hallmark of this generation. The children who are being taught pure whimsy and bullshit in school are learning very early not to trust everything. Okay. And it's up to their will and their spirit and their heart to decide what they do want to employ and choose and prefer. So individual choice, I would say, is what is getting people through, cutting through all of the distractions and all of the factions and all of the belief systems. Individual choice. Now, on the topic of individual choice, I grew up in a family. I was a foster kid. I was a trafficked foster kid. I was trafficked by MI6. And I was trafficked into a family that was atheist, Bolshevik. And they hated religion. Religion was the opiate of the people. But it wouldn't have worked very well if I had defied them in my way of interacting with them. So I decided as a very young child that I was just going to let them say whatever they wanted to say, and I was going to hold my own counsel, like, this is too crazy for me. Okay. And that's what I did. I decided at the age of 6 that I wanted to follow Jesus because I met a lady on the boardwalk in Venice, California in July of 1950, and she had her little book there, and she read to me what Jesus talked about, and I remember thinking to myself, you know, that makes sense to me. I think I'll do that. All right. And I decided to try his way out. I decided to try to live like Jesus said was a good idea, and I decided to see if that would work out for me or not. All right. And now, 70 years later, I can testify to you that I'm okay with how it has turned out. It's okay. My family's not so happy, but I'm okay with it. And so it's been a matter of personal choice to follow a path that was different from everybody around me. And what you have to do when you do that is you have to police your own thoughts. Because people are throwing thoughts at you all the time just to test you, just to see if they can get a rise out of you, just to see if you know how to answer, just to see if you've gotten that far yet. Okay. You're going to be gamed by people. And so the first thing you do is learn to keep your own counsel. The second thing you learn to do is monitor and police your own thoughts. Now, I was very young when I realized that the thoughts that I was hearing in my own mind weren't mine. They weren't my thoughts. No, no way. I didn't think that. Where'd that come from? No. And you begin editing and blocking thoughts that you don't think are going to work within the paradigm you've created for your own choices. You take your life seriously, and that's one thing that Jordan Peterson says. You have to take your life seriously, and you have to treat yourself as if you are worthy of being treated well. Okay? In the morning, make your bed, clean your room, clean yourself up, show yourself that you matter to yourself. And that's basically the path that I followed, yeah. And it had some ups and it had some downs. But it's a path that I can say now, after 70 years, okay, I accept the outcome of this path. Considering that 44,000 people per year commit suicide in the United States, I'm not one of those. I could have been. I could have been. Any of us could be. And so now that we know that what we're having thrown at us is not worthy of our attention, and the problems that are worthy of our attention are being withheld, we're in a kind of a hiatus, you know? It's like waiting for the other shoe to drop. Okay. All right. The Black Hats have been wanting to start World War III for at least 20 years, and they're still the NEOCONS and PNAC, the Project for a New American Century. Hey, Project for a New American Century, I'll give you the picture. Those are the deep state bigwigs, and they are still around. And they have yet to be charged for their crimes because they utilize the most egregious, inhuman methods of fixing problems by destroying civil process. See what I'm saying? Okay, Steve, are you there? No, Steve's not there. Well, I'm about ready to call it in for today. And you've got a whole bunch for those of you at Facebook, you've got a whole bunch of notes up here, notes and links and things to think about. And I'm hoping that you will please put your questions down below, because what your questions do for me is give me the material to start next week's reflection on history reset. Are we going to have a physical reset? I still don't get that. And who are the white hats that are cleaning up the dumps? I don't know. And who is Q? He seems to have his thumb on the pulse of what's going on currently, but he doesn't talk about any plans. Nobody's talking about plans. So we have plenty to think about. And this has been Emily Craig, and this has been History Reset for January 11th. And see you next week. Bye-bye. There we go. Okay.